Now, I know by the title of this chapter, you're kind of like, is this really boring? And it is. Incredibly boring. A very simple chapter filled with incredibly profound results that you're not going to want to miss. Most of you are like, well, I know how to make tracks and put things together, but there are issues that we need to address when we do layering sounds that are not just what sounds to put together. Because sometimes we want bad sounds that have nothing to do with the sound we're trying to create. We want those in there, but only for a millisecond or two, or maybe for a quick little fade in, or whatever it is. We're going to show you how to do that, and it may not be intuitive, but it's pretty simple once I show you how to do it. Let's roll. We've talked about layering sound effects before, but we're going to get into it a little deeper. And we've also done a punch before, but it's never a bad idea to do it more than once. We're back in Audition. Here is some layers that I brought together. There's that one. Let's go back here. Nice comedic slap kind of sound. Another one. Okay. And this one. It's got a lot of low frequencies. You can see all the lows there. And last but not least, just that. So when we layer, we don't always just put sounds together just to make it bigger. Each sound needs to have its own purpose. It needs to have its own place in the sonic cube. We don't want some sounds covering others in an EQ. In the EQ sense, we also don't want them covering sonically EQ, pan, or depth. Because a punch is usually a pretty sharp sound effect, we kind of break that rule a little bit. Some of these sounds are going to overlap sonically, but they should have a different kind of feel, something different about them, a different attack, a different element that adds more body, more drama, something to the sound. And we're going to add plugins as we need to in order to fix each one of these up. So the first thing we need to do, of course, is do a little alignment so that they all happen at the same time. We're going to get rid of this. We're just going to kind of zoom in here and make sure that we've got the beginnings of all of these sounds. I'm just going to select and delete. Just some basic editing acumen here. And that whoosh will be the beginning of our sound. I'm going to say if I sync these two together, we should be able to get these to have the right timing. That's about right together, the whoosh and the hit. And that means that the rest of these hits should be about the same. Notice that the beginning of these sounds is not necessarily the true attack of them. Notice that the bump of it's actually here. So this is the same thing here on this one. We want the bass frequencies is where we really want to, is where that attack, what your brain would associate with the attack, that's where it would be. Not the very beginning of the file, so don't be fooled with that. This clearly starts here. We'll zoom in a little more, get some more clarity. That's going to go there. That's going to go there. Let's see how we do here. That's pretty well in sync, at least for now. Let's take a listen to, and then we'll get rid of the rest of this stuff here. Did I just kill everything? Nope. Good. Good. All right, back we go. Oops. Okay, so let's listen to this first one. I'll make a loop of it. So that's kind of the high frequency response. The slap, the skin, if you will. We don't really need the whoosh part of it. In fact, we don't need the whoosh part on any of these. So well, at least we'll do them one at a time. We'll just get rid of this and see what we have now. Yeah. And we talk about compressors and things quite a bit in the mix section. We do briefly in the fix section. But let's do a couple of things. Let's add your basic EQ, parametric. Fantastic. We're going to accentuate the high frequencies just a little bit. Wrong one. There we go. Okay, let's again go put this back onto a loop. And notice we're like crushing the snot out of this thing. So what we want to do is put in a brick wall limiter so that we make sure that we never go over. And now is probably an excellent time to remind you that when you're doing sound effects, this should never be in your master output. It just can't be. Your master output session should be in some other separate sound effect session. Let's pull this down. And we can get rid of the lows here because it's not really going to serve us. Maybe some mid-ranginess. Cool. Let's see what we've got here. And that's super comedy. And because it's got this long delay, it's probably not all that useful. We'll add an EQ to it. We love EQ. We're going to take out some of the high frequencies that we've added from the slap. Add some of the mid-range. Get rid of the lows. Then we're going to add some compression to it to give it some more snap. It's been compressed already. That's why it doesn't have an attack anymore. So we're going to give it some serious attack. Where's my compressor? Single band compressor. Hi. So we're going to give this a very short attack, only about 4 or 5 milliseconds, with a really fast release and a really strong ratio. There we go. Now it's much sharper, much shorter. Sounds a little less like a cartoon. And if we put these together, they're a little out of sync, but you can see they don't really overlap, which is nice. Let's try the next one. Now here we're getting into some nice low frequencies. We'll do the same thing we have here. A little parametric EQ. And some mid-range. That's pretty good, pretty snappy. How about this one? It sort of has that upper mid-range. They probably just need the same EQs, believe it or not, as the comedic one, just without the low cut. And this has a lot of that 95 hertz, which the other slap has. So I'm going to remove that from this one. And add low lows instead. Got a lot more bite to it now. And then how about this one? Now here's our sub lows for sure. Here we go. Come on. There we go. EQ, parametric. And I don't need that high frequency stuff at all for sure. And for this, we're actually going to help. I don't know. We'll see if we need to compress it, but for sure, we're going to add some lows, extra lows. We're going to go to waves. We're going to pull up low air stereo. And I'll show you what I'm doing here. Down here in the 50 hertz range. Excuse me. You're going to have some pretty good headphones on to hear this, but that's a little annoying. Now we're definitely going to have to add some snap to it just to get those low frequencies to snap to. So in fact, let's reverse these. So the low air is working after the compressor. There. We're kind of overloading, you can see here. So, did I mention that you get tired of hearing all these things? And then the last one is the whoosh. We don't need much there. We'll just use the inline EQ. It's a little extra help up here in the higher frequencies. That's all we need there. So how are we doing now? It'd be nice if they were in sync, wouldn't it? So let's do that into a better sync. Let's use this. Yeah, you're the one that's a little... Now that we've taken the low frequencies out of it, the actual attack seems to be here. This one's a little late as well. Okay. Now, obviously, these are all at equal volume to each other, which doesn't really work. But now that they're all in the right space, we can fool around with the volume. The comedic one is a little too much, I think. Let's go back to our loop, please. There we go. We'll pull everything down because what's happening is that the hard limiter that we put over here is also taking out some of our attack. Well, that's a lot of punch. And then what you could do is if you were really industrious, and we talk about this in the mix section, now that we have everything else sounding great, what we can do is add a bus. Hi, bus A. And we can tell everybody to go to bus A. You're like, Mark, what are you doing? We're going to put a compressor across all of these that only acts on all of them together.
What?
So in other words, we want to make this even snappier. So instead of individually putting a compressor on each one of these, we want to put it on all of them as if they were acting as one sound. We're going to leave the whoosh out. So now they're all showing up here. We're going to add a single band compressor. We're going to snap it up. Let's mute this. Now, in some compressors, you have the ability to do a mix where you can mix half of the original signal with the direct signal, which is super useful. We can't do that here, but... And compression generally takes away low frequencies. So we'll add another EQ. Here, we'll just add this channel one here at the end. And a little more high frequencies. A little. Add the whoosh back in. More. Now, obviously, this is, Indiana Jones time, massive crunch kind of punch to the body or to the face or whatever it is. That's brutal. Not very realistic. But I want to show you kind of what goes into some of these layering aspects. I mean, we have, I'll just remind you these layers. This one, that is not what it originally sounded like. It used to sound like this. All that low frequency. No reason to have it. This one. The way it used to sound. A lot of high frequencies and a lot of delay. A lot of length, which we didn't need. This one. What it used to sound like. A lot of high frequencies we got rid of. We didn't need it. Here. This. A lot of kind of a whooshy attack. And now corrected. This one. Versus this one. Okay. And then, of course, we left our one alone here. And then that's a pretty juicy sound. Let's try another one. We're in Logic Pro to do some layering of some sci-fi work, just so I can show you that, all that I'm showing you works in any digital audio workstation, as long as you've got good plugins and these kinds of things. So if you're not familiar with Logic, you'll notice immediately that it's pretty similar. You'll see you'll see your similarities and what I want to show you regarding layering of sound effects here. So let me just show you this clip. I'm going to mute everything here for a second. So it's two ships coming by. That's really all we're going to deal with, not this title at all. So they're coming by, they're in space, there's one, there's two, there's three. And the engine comes by, it turns, all kinds of fun things. Also, it helps to know that these are called star blades. Let me show you what it is that I've got going on in the world of sound effects. Here's one sound. That's pretty cool. And, let's say the director wanted to have something that felt a little more real, a little more turbine driven rather than just rocket driven, which is why we have all these jets in here. It's pretty cool. How about this one? Kind of a lo-fi mono, of course, F-100 fighter back in the good old days. Here's some space rumble. Sounds like a lot more than just space rumble. But how about this? Now, if you don't have good headphones or a subwoofer, you probably didn't hear that, and you're certainly not going to hear this, which is way out there in the low frequencies. Here's another one. Nice little fast bit. Here's a jet pack. Awesome sound. How about this one? Another jetpack. Super cool. We don't really like it when sound effects pan. That kind of is a pain because that means we have to do all kinds of things to mess with it. It's obviously going the wrong way. In this case, it's going left to right, and these ships are going right to left. Not really very useful. But let's see what happens. Here's super jets overhead. All kinds of fun stuff. And then last but not least, the sword. Pretty cool. What you've immediately grasped already is that this is a very short sequence. Done. So we've got a lot of beautiful sounds, but we can't use all of them in length. So the first thing we need to do is edit and see which one of these sounds is going to really which one of these is going to fit. So let's just start with these and line them all up one at a time. That's obviously early. We'll pull it over here. Still early. Let's push it over a little bit more. Still a little early. Move it over a little bit more. That'll work. Let's try the next one. Obviously, we have now a visual reference that we can look at, which is nice and helpful. Let's go to 2. Let's pull this over here. That'll work for now. Let's check out our F-100. That'll work for now. I'm not going to cut tails off of this until we're sure we've got everything in the right place. Now, the space rumble is going to need to be a little bit ahead of it. You can see that it kind of rolls in. We want to make sure that it happens when it's at its strongest to start. And this we can cut just for now because it's not going to matter. Oops. One of the things I like about Logic is that it tracks with your every cut or every slide. There's a downer. Let's see, does that make sense? Yeah, I think it does. We can cut this to the same frame. Here's this, which is obviously not in the right place. And it's got a hard hit to it, so we'll see if we even use it, but it should probably happen right here, shouldn't it? And then we'll go here. Mark that as out. Let's check this jet fighter. I'm going to say that because this is so fast, we'll use it for these other fighters over here on the right. So let's put them over here as like latecomers. Yeah, and they'll actually be a little earlier. That's cool. Here's the jetpack. Now, obviously, good Lord, this is humongous. But it'd be really cool as a wind-up if we could get it to the right space, the right size. In Audition and Pro Tools and Logic and Performer, they all have some version of being able to time compress online like this. I just see how it's rewriting the file for me. Now check out how fast it goes. Now it's still way too long, so we'll undo, and try it again. I'm holding down Option and it gives me a different key or a different cursor there, which shows me that it's going to time compress. Let's see if I can do it again. Yes, I can. Now it's pretty digitally messed up. We kind of don't care because there's going to be enough levels where we just want those turbine sounds. And we may just start it right at the beginning, right at first frame. To right about there, as it passes and the rest of the noise will probably take care of itself from all the other tracks. How about this jetpack? Same problem, right? It's just way too long. Really beautiful sound. So let's compress it, but let's see what happens if we use it as the outro. We're going to time compress. Okay, that's it going by. Very nice. Now I'm going to double click. This is where it starts deviating how things work. In Logic, you have to open up an audio window in order to do special things like reverse. In Pro Tools and things like that, you don't. In Audition, you have to do the same thing. You open the spectral window or the waveform view, and we're going to select, give me this, select all. No, select all here. We're going to say reverse. It's reversed now. Let's see what happens now. So that's cool and useful. Now that's the nice retreating waveform. Let's see what they sound like together. So it's a little late. That could be useful. Who knows? And then we have our jets overhead. Obviously way late. Now that second one actually does real good for us on these other fighters that are flying by, doesn't it? Totally works for that. And then last but not least is our sword. Probably somewhere about here. I'm just guessing. Maybe a little earlier. Yeah, something like that. So if we unsolo, let's see what, this is going to be crushingly loud, so I'm going to pull this down. Well, that's a pretty dense amount of stuff, isn't it? Pretty dense indeed. Yeah, well, we didn't get over. We only got over about a decibel. That's nice. So let's do it like we did before with the punch and just start taking educated guesses on how we want to manage the sounds of these. Let's start with this one. That still feels late. Let's pull it back some. Well, we sure want to take out all of the low frequencies. This is the Logic EQ because we don't. It's not really going to show up in this sound anyway. 48 dB, pull out anything below 100. Let's engage our cycle. That's pretty good. Don't need to do much to that one, I think. It's probably what we want there. How about this one? Sort of the sister to this other one. In fact, it might be also late. Let's pull it over. So now it's a little early. That actually they kind of work together really nicely. Let's double check our sound on this one. I'm not real thrilled about the distortion sound that's in there, so let's see if we can just take the edge off of it. Kind of that bit. And we'll turn on our low pass, or low cut rather. Do the same thing. Sure. Awesome. And now here's our F100, which I know is going to need a lot of work. What am I doing? It's late. It sounds pretty gross, but the nice thing about it is that it has that really biting mid-range. The problem, of course, right away is that it is mono. So the first thing we need to do is not allow that. This is the stereo spread in Logic, which is pretty self-explanatory. Low frequencies go to the left here, and then they go to the right here, and then left and right, and it's just how it makes kind of a cool phantom, very mono-compatible stereo. We like 12. I don't think we want to go all the way down here because the sound doesn't go down there. We will keep it very mid-rangey. And as always, stereo enhancement works best in that upper mid-range. Very nice. Let's do an EQ. Make sure there's no funny business happening that we don't want here and here. Notice how that high cut took out some of that distortion nonsense. So turn it off. Going on if I turn it on. Much, much, much smoother. Much nicer to listen to. All right, here's our rumble. Now I know we got to work with this. I sure don't need all that crap in there going on. So we got our low frequencies from the space. That's good. But we're going to do a huge 48 kilohertz, or sorry, 48 dB per octave drop down here. That's all that needs to be. Maybe there. Just giving us some lows, super lows. The ambience of the space room, if you will. Okay, here's our distorted downer. Now that's obviously going to compete with our big space rumble, and we'll have to manage that when we get to the mixing side. And I don't know if we're going to use this. I wonder why that's there. Cool. Okay, so, and here's this jet fighter. It probably is right, because it's not competing with these two, if we look because of the timing of it. I might take some lows out of it, though. Just taking the lows out. Because these planes are slightly farther away, so that they're not going to be as present. Pretty cool. Lots of crazy stuff going on in there. Now, I don't like the panning on this, because it's panning all over the place. So I'm going to go to imaging, directional mixer. I'm going to limit the pan of it some, just like this. Maybe even more. Useful. Here's our super jets, which are super crazy loud. We're going to add distortion, high frequencies to get rid of, what am I saying? We're going to lose high frequencies to get rid of some of that distortion. There's also kind of a distortion rumbling here around this. A lot of energy there, which we don't want in the 800 zone. And then the sword, I will probably pull it down too. The sword's going to need some more work than just EQ. Let's go here. Because it needs to feel like it's out in space. It needs to feel kind of otherworldly. I don't know if it's even going to work. So we want to add a reverb to it. We'll certainly add some EQ, probably some high frequency stuff to add some high end to it. Let's see here. Let's go to Neutron Exciter. Thank you very much. This is the exciting section. And the reverb, we'll just use our friends at Valhalla. Very nice. All right, let's start with the EQ first. This is all very confusing. I'm going to just make our selection for our loop very tight. What we're trying to do is get rid of some of that nonsense that's there that isn't really helping. In fact, let's turn off Neutron. Let's turn off Valhalla. This stuff. We want it to be nice and sheeny, not kind of clunky sounding. Cool. That was an easy one. Actually, let's add some more high frequencies, just a general shelf, E shelf. Give it some more, wrong one, Mark. This one here. There's our shelf. Yeah, nice and sheeny. Okay, let's add some more excitement. We'll turn on this one. Try tape. Oh, let's turn it on maybe. Ooh. Ouch. Ooh. Ow. That's better. Just some extra sizzle up there. And then let's add a nice short reverb. Room. Let's do Studio Alpha. Turn it on. In fact, let's slow this whole thing down by a bunch. Go. Maybe better. Which means we need to make it a little earlier now. I don't know. We're just experimenting here. So let's see what we've got now that we've got everything we think in the right position. We got a lot of crushing volume. We're at +8. It's going, hey man, you're killing us. Let's turn this way down. Well, it's a lot of stuff for sure. Okay, so let's start building. We're going to build our soundscape now that everything's in the right place. We'll go back to a correct loop. And we'll start with these two Yahoos. Yahoo. They're obviously way, way too loud, so we'll pull everybody down to about -12 just to give us some headroom. Okay, and then we'll add in our third brother here. And he's way, way out of sight. And obviously he needs to be faded in, and we can do that at least in Logic this away by just typing in a nice fade. 500 milliseconds should do it. And give it a curve that looks like that. Yeah, very nice. Bring it up a little bit more. Beautiful. Now we got everything in the right place. We can start doing some tail cuts, give or take. Let's check out our space rumble. Where's that at? Way too loud. We'll pull it down. See how it sounds in context. Probably pretty good. Here's our downer. Where's that at? Probably a little too much. Let's put it all together. Still a little too much. Let's try it with our crazy guy. I don't know. That's pretty weird. Let's give it a fade in. Maybe that'll help it. Some of you have already figured that out. Mark, why don't you fade that thing in? It's cool, but it comes in like a drum. Yeah. There's some other things we just want to give a little fade into. A one framer. Oh, we won't worry about that, but this one needs a 42 millisecond fade. There we go. Awesome. Here's our jet by very fast for the secondary folks. Way too loud. And also needs some more high frequencies now that we're hearing this all in context. So we'll go to our shelf and give it some extra juice. Just a cut through. Still way too loud. Too many high frequencies. Now way too soft. Sure, and we'll pan it just a little bit to the right so we can see the guy over here. Oh yeah, beautiful. Let's add the jetpack in now. Cool. We'll give it a little bit of a fade in. 42 milliseconds, which is a frame. We'll zoom in. I got to pull this guy back one frame. Oops. There it is, one frame. See how we do now. Cool. A little too much still. Cool, let's add the next guy. I think he's going to be too loud. Let's pull him down. Cool. We'll go here and here. Just be very subtle. And then these crazy dudes. Cool. All together now. Okay, and we'll bring this just to here and give it a fade in of about 125 milliseconds. Cool. Oh, and then the sword. Actually, we can get out of solo at this point. It's a little bright. It sounds a little too on the nose. Yeah, we'll pull that down. Oops. It's a lot of stuff. Let's edit these to be in the appropriate place with a one frame fade in. That reverb's just going to tail because it's a plugin. And you are just, I just don't like you doing that. Being early. Don't be premature. Now we can balance this, and there's theoretically there'd be music in here, so we'd have to balance that. We'd put this all out to a bus, and then EQ the music, EQ the sound effects to fit with the music. Because in a trailer like this, the music is more important than sound effects usually. Well, of course I'm saying that, but who knows what you're trying to do. But you can see I've just made this layer. Hasn't taken us that long. Well, okay, it's taken us almost 30 minutes, but you get it. One of these is just still too loud. What is it? It's not you. It's not you. It's not you. Is it you guys? Yeah, it's you guys. Just so loud. Yeah, I know what you can do. We can take all of these tracks. Let's go to the mix window. Take all of these tracks out to the sword. We're going to send them to bus 1. And on bus 1, here it is. We're going to add a multi-band compressor that'll make nice and quick work of all of this stuff. So it's all nice and balanced. Let's just use a simple, let's call it Final Pop Compressor. Let's go there with it. Let's turn off auto gain. Cool. And we'll even, let's see, input, output, bring them down even further. There's the gain. There. So now the low frequencies are controlled. Everybody seems to be nice and happy. So that's a big lesson in how to do layering, but hopefully, well, no, I do hope you get to do something this cool and even 4 or 5 times as big as some of these sound effects will be. We've done gunfire before, but let's just do it again because it's so much fun. Here's what I've got here on this channel. Nice little cock. Nice little 45 caliber. An AR-15 223. Another AR-15 223. And here's what you haven't heard before. A nice rap bass drum. And unfortunately, those are all distorted. You can hear it. There, that one's nice. We'll use that. So the first thing we do is we'll just edit away here, put things in the right spaces first. The cock will come first. We'll get this right. Command K it, put it right at the top. The rest of this can go away. Tick, tick. There's our Colt. There is our AR-15. Here's our other AR-15. Here is our metric kick. So let's put a marker in here while we're at it. There's a, not there, here. There's a marker. I'll just line everybody up to the marker. Good. Awesome. And then last but not least, oh, those cartridges can go over there somewhere. Fine. Just fine. Okie doke. That's pretty well in sync. So from the top, what do we have? Okay, and so these guys need to come a little bit sooner. You can go down here, and you can go away, as can the rest of you for that matter. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Great. Let's see what we got. So the chick, probably about right. I mean, that's real nice. Just too loud, but we'll get to that in a second. What's this one? Nice mid-rangey. It's got a lot of room to it. You hear the room or the outside. I'm not a real fan of that kind of thing. We want to kind of ramp that off. Now we could do it with automation, or we can do it with a plugin. And a plugin called an expander. And we can do that here in Audition, which has an OK expander. We might as well just try it. It's a weird way of looking at expansion, however, but don't mind me. Let's see here. What preset shall we use? How about Compander? Sounds good. We'll say no to this. We'll delete that edit point. We'll put this one up here. We'll delete this edit point. What this is doing is a little coefficient kind of thing, whereas the volume comes up, it either gets compressed or turned down. Now you can also turn it up if you want. Did I just undo that? I surely did. Dynamics processing. So in fact, I'll just go like this. Put another one here, and we'll go like this. Thank you. So that what's happening here, what we want is once the sound falls below a certain level, we want it to be attenuated. You can see what it's saying here is you're expanding. And it's a bizarre way of saying that what's happening is the dynamic range is being expanded, but what's happening is that it acts sort of like a compressor, except that when the sound goes below a threshold, the volume is reduced. Obviously, we need to pull it much, much higher. Even higher. I don't need another one of those there, no. Even more. There we go. See how we're killing off the reverb or the echo? Because once that comes below -10, it's getting killed. We love it. No more problems with the reverb. Don't have to use de-reverb or anything like that. Oh, let's talk about the sound. It's pretty good, actually. Kind of mid-rangey, that's what we want. And this has got kind of low mid-range to it. And it also has that kind of roominess in there. So let's drag this one in here as well. It's got a little extra funniness because it's dipping in the middle of its own waveform. I don't know if you can see that. That's why it's got that kind of that hiccup. So we may have to pull this down a little bit more. Nope. No, it doesn't want to behave. We have other ways of dealing with you, my friend. Ways that are just as simple as this. You can tell what I'm doing right away. Adding a fade. That also can work. Which is basically what we did up here, only a little more gracefully. Let's see if there's something that has some low end to it. Nope. So let's add an EQ to this old guy here. Somewhere in the 200 zone. Sure. Nice little bump there. And now you. Let's see if our plugin will behave for us. It's sort of going left to right, isn't it? Not really a fan of it. Do it the old-fashioned way. Sure. Now this kick probably is not going to need any help at all. Except for one thing. It's got bass to it, but not that much. It didn't have any low frequency bass. So let's see if we can add some low frequencies with our friends from Waves Low Air. I believe it's mono, is it not? No, it's stereo. Waves, Low Air, stereo. Let's make a loop. And I hope you have headphones that go down here, or a subwoofer or something. There. Now, I don't like that tick, the tick of it, of the bass drum. I mean, it'd be great. It's a great bass drum, but I don't need that as a gunshot. I just need the low. So I'm going to turn the direct down. Actually, let's not. Let's just add an EQ that takes high frequencies out. And that looks like this. You know what to do. A low-pass filter that goes like this. All better now. All together now. That is a gunshot. Now the cartridges are way too loud. Let's go to the mix window. Pull this down. And also, it wouldn't be that close, so we'd lose some high frequencies, which we're happy to accommodate. A nice 6 dB kind of low curve like this. Beautiful. Also takes the volume down. Let's also go and address from the top our cock, which also might need a little assistance in the high frequency department, just to give it the fact that it's in error away from us. Not that much. A little bit more. There we go. We can also give it a little room, but let's see what the gun sounds like. That's pretty good. We can also pan it to the right. There you go. Put the gun over here on the left a little. And you can tell, what do we have in here? We've got the cock, obviously. We've got this, that, this. Haven't done much to these. This. Gives it that cool bottom. And then, of course, the cartridge. It's a beautiful, beautiful layered sound. And not to be outdone, since we've had punches and all gunshots and all kinds of other damage, we might as well have explosions. So here we are. Check out what this sounds like. Here's our first layer. I love it. Pretty cool. This one. Awesome. This one. Fabulous. This one. Stupendous. This one. Oh, it's got a little tail end. Little incoming action, little incoming artillery. And this one I've done a little edit too. Now it's got a little break in there. But it's sort of, you could edit that out if you want. I kind of liked it. And then we've got this one. This is almost like a gas explosion. That's kind of what gas sounds like when you ignite it. I don't recommend you do. And then, of course, super nice. And here's what we've done with this, just really quickly, just so you can see. We've lined all this up, obviously. And in this, I've kind of left it alone. It's pretty good all on its own. This one I've also left alone. It's got some low frequencies to it that we might EQ out, but it's an explosion, man. I mean, you're going to have low frequencies everywhere. But notice this one doesn't, so we can live with this one having low frequencies. And lots of highs, that's nice. This is all mid frequencies, no high frequencies at all. It's got some nice crunchy distortion to it. There's our super sub lows there. And this, nice and clean. We might roll off some of the low frequencies on this one. Real simple. Go here, high pass, 6 dB. We'll roll these off just like this. Let me solo this like so. Sure. And this one. Just right. And at this point, we're going to have some combating, some of these explosions are going to combat each other, but it all should be just a happy mess anyway for an explosion I'm talking about. And then this. A super low thump, and what I've got in there is a parametric EQ that has cut off all the high frequencies. I've got the pitch shifter from Audition, lowering the pitch by 7 semitones. Check it out up here. Here's where it should be. I just lowered the pitch of it. Different than low air. It's got a nice thump to it. And then run up the snappiness of the compressor, so otherwise it sounds like this. Has no hit to it at all, but that has a nice snap to it. And when we put them all together, let's make these go up here like this. You can see them all. We're obviously frying the snot out of our master, so we'll put in a hard limiter that I just like this minus 0.2 decibels is where it will be crushed. I like the look ahead at 10% and the release all the way off, and I never link channels because sometimes the left channel might go over and the right channel doesn't, but if you link them, everything gets squelched, which I don't like. And just a real quick reminder of layering with how you can layer those explosions and, have fun just finding these sounds. That's half the fun. And here's what it sounds like without the thud. Oops. And with. Right? You can totally feel the difference. In fact, we might bring it up just a little bit. Actually, I think overall we're overdriving our limiter, so we're going to bring everything way down. A few decibels down. There we go. Now we got some room for that. And with it off. And with it on. Just enough little thump in there to give it a little kick in the pants. So layering is really, really important. Never be satisfied with just dumping a good sound in that comes from a library or something that you've recorded. You can always add elements to it, not just EQ, but elements, new elements that add combinations of sounds that otherwise wouldn't have been heard. And that's what layering and sound effects in general is all about. Now, how do we get these sounds out of here? I'm still on the explosion. How do we, if we don't want to use our mix session to build sound effects and we're building them in separate sessions, how do we get this out of here? Well, the easy way is just do, in Audition or any digital audio workstation, you go some kind of export multi-track mix down, you say entire session, and you obviously want it to be 48K, 24-bit, none of this, MP3 nonsense. We want this to be AIF. There we go. Much nicer. And the entire session or whatever part of this you want. No reason to include markers and no reason to open files after the export. It's going to send it to the right place and you just export. And what you get out of that is a nice stereo file, everything mixed down. If you want to have separate bits, the individual tracks bounced out. For example, if you've got effects on each one of these, which you would, and let's say it was a sound effect that you knew you were going to want to mess around with, there were other flybys or other explosions, or maybe you have a specific kind of gunshot or a specific kind of slap or punch, and you want to use these in various different ways. You want to have the individual tracks bounced out. Then every digital audio workstation does it sort of differently from this point on, but here in Audition, what we do is export to Adobe Premiere Pro. And you're like, well, I don't want it to go to Premiere Pro. I know, it won't. Here's what you do. You do export each track as a stem. You don't say this. You don't do open into Adobe Premiere Pro. You say 48K, obviously. And then you do this. And what it's going to do is create an XML of all these files and then a folder with new burned audio of each one of these files. So we go like this. There it goes. And if we go take a look at what it's given us here, there's the XML. And then here are all 8 of the audio tracks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And labeled as such. So there they are. So if I were to take track 8 and bring it in, notice it's also in sync. A nice stereo track in sync of just that track. And if we want to look at the waveform, look at the difference in the waveform. Pretty awesome. It's basically reflecting the edit that we have done to it. And that's real good. So that's how you would get this stuff out when you do exporting anywhere for your sound effects. And by the way, I strongly recommend that you make stems of sound effects that you really love, that you're certainly going to use in any kind of series. Build your library of sound effects rather than, I'll just make it again, or, I'll pull up the session again. Just build a library. It's so much easier to drag things into your session than pulling up sessions and copy things and saving and all of that other stuff. Build a library of stems of your sound effects. We're in the donuts piece, and I just want to show you just some general insertion of sound effects. I've kind of just glossed over that everybody knows how to drag a sound effects onto a piece of sound effect onto a track and cut it. We cover some of that in the editing section, the editing volume. But I just want to kind of show you what some of the things that we've been doing here, just so you can maybe get inspired or learn something that you might not have learned in one of the other volumes. Again, donuts, this is the end of them in the car and then the big montage. And you can see we have a bunch of sound effects tracks here. And if we can expand it, you'll see it's kind of a big mess of stuff. We just wanted to create something that had where the sound effects were the actual track. So let's see what happened here. And then music kind of takes over. So, how did we come up with this? Well, the creative part is in finding the sounds, being able to find the right, the right tree snapping noises and then the right creaking noises, lions and all these kinds of things. So I'm going to expand these tracks so we can take a look at them a little more. It just means we'll have to scroll a lot, but at least we can see what's happening. And we'll zoom out here. So this is just a standard tree fall, and you'll notice it's just by itself. There's nothing else with it. And we've been experimenting with this creatively, and there's nothing wrong with not knowing exactly what you want and experimenting. I mean, that's what filmmaking is all about, really, anyway. You think you know until you get there, and then you're like, oh, wait, I didn't know. So for us, it's this, sound effects is always fun. So the tree fall seemed to work fine as it was. You don't actually even know it's a tree fall. It's just this buzzy noise. And then for the creakwood door, where we wanted the creaking of the donut lid to come up. Here's one, which was nice, but it sounded more like a haunted house. So then we added this one, which is also a haunted house. But when you put them together, they kind of have a nice little harmony to them. And you know me, I love layering sounds, love them. This lion, we may add some low frequency effects to in the mix. But for now, it's absolutely the right sound. We might pull it up just for fun a little bit here. And then the crowd scream, totally fine. Totally fantastic crowd scream. And then we drop down to here with the tiger. Tiger needs to be brought over a little bit. Thank you very much. Again, another sound we will probably assist in the mix, but for now, it's absolutely the right sound. And in a contrast to the lion, right? You don't necessarily notice that one's a lion and one's a tiger when you first listen. And then the same crowd scream, just dragged a little bit later. So it feels like it's a completely different crowd scream, but it is not. And then we have gun cocks. And this is one gun cock, 45. That seemed a little thin, but had all the high frequencies. And here's another one that has a lot more body to it. We may add some low frequencies to that because it's fun. In fact, we might as well just add it now. We'll go to AU, waves. You know what I'm going to do, low air stereo. We're just going to solo this. We're going to put it into a loop. See if we can find a place for this to work. Sounds more like a heartbeat than anything. But I like it. It's nice. We got our low frequency, which we will balance in the mix later. What else we got in here? Oh yeah, the pig squeals. We had, I always wanted to have this pig squeal screaming while she's eating, but it's just kind of like a horror thing. It doesn't really give you anything. So we added a little grunt, and together. In the mix, we may only end up using the pig grunt and just jamming it. And then I wanted vomit sounds. And, it's really hard to come up with vomit in a short period of time that makes any sense. So we found this one, which is cool. It's not vomit at all. It's just a bunch of guys or people just going, whatever they're saying, but they're mumbling weird stuff. And you can see, maybe you can't, we've time changed all of these. Which it sort of gives, it's not really vomity, but it has that feel of the curdled milk stuff coming out. And then, of course, actual samples of some poor guy trying to vomit. I'm sorry. It just cracks me up every time I hear vomit. It doesn't crack me up when I have to vomit, and together, it just gives you that horrible feeling, which is great. And then we have this little rise while we do the effect on their eyes, which is really just a musical effect. And then this, I just took my what and put it in there and slowed it way down pitch-wise. So to give it kind of his, dazed and confused look. And then I took a little Snow White kind of cartoon laughter and we'll jam the crap out of that. And then added a clock tick, which actually happens to line up with the tempo of the incoming music here. Now let's look at this, which you haven't heard yet. We haven't gone here yet, but here's the tire skid. One tire skid. I liked it. And that one has a little more edge. There we go. And then we've added a nice little whoosh hit to line up with the footses on the groundses. And then I've got another one here somewhere. Why it's down there is beyond me. It should be up here. Always organizing, keeping things organized. There we go. And then in the Foley land, we have the foot, the shoe bounding, which we will deal with in the mix. Okay, what else have we got in here? We've got crowd noise, and then we've added, just to give some character to this, because crowds by themselves are beautiful, but just don't have any character. So I've added some funny laughter and then some cartoon laughter, which is just stupid by itself. But when you layer it in, and we'll balance it, all of a sudden there's a lot more character to it. And we leave the audience by itself here. We add the gunshots or multiple bits. They are 20. I'll show you this first. This is the Freedom Yell, which we will expand in the mix. Here's a large scale single cannon, which was great. Here is a 45. And here is, I needed some crack, so I added some 22. And it's also got range. And I'm leaving the ring of the cannon going. And it feels like, that gunshot is still ringing, which of course it isn't. It's the sound of the cannon. And the rest of this is just Foley and nonsense. So anyway, that's, I haven't done any crossfades on this at all. You can see there's not a single one. They're just hard cuts. And again, in Audition, you have a 1 millisecond crossfade automatically if you have it set up right. And that's just about all we need. We really want this to feel like it's all a bunch of hard cuts and things. We'll be, messing around with some of these edit points for a while just to make sure we have no blank spaces. But Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, and it'll all start coming together in the mix. But I just wanted to show that to you. So it's been a pretty simple chapter with some pretty profound results. And hopefully now when you start thinking about creating your sound effects, your really deep multi-track sound effects, you can start looking for ways to use attack, sustain, your decay, and your releases as possible insert sounds that need to be added and then mashed together to create a whole that either is otherworldly or hyper real. Either way, it's going to get you your $50 million impact one step closer in that immersion. We'll see you in post.